Hello. Let me introduce myself. I'm Natia Gigiadze. I introduce Student Youth Council from Georgia, and today I will be moderator of the podcast. And the topic of the podcast will be ecological sustainability for citizenship education stakeholders. And hereby, I would like to invite my colleague and friend Teona Sadradze, who is trainer, Youth Advisory Council member, and also youth worker.
Thank you, Natia, for introduction. I'm glad to be here and to talk about this important topic with you.
I would like to pass directly to the questions, and my question will be about the ecological sustainability, ecosystems, and how it works.
Thank you for the question. Basically, over the last half century, ecologists have learned much about how ecosystems contribute to the fulfillment of basically human life. Most obviously, ecosystems provide many of the goods that are harvested and traded in the human economy, like we can say food, fiber, timber, forage, biomass, fuels, and many actually pharmaceuticals as well. Basically, ecosystems also provide like indirect benefits for humans through their impact on nutrient flux and cycling, the mitigation of flood and drought, and maintenance of biodiversity, all of which feedback in important ways on the production of ecosystem goods that humans directly derive from ecosystems. Finally, ecosystems also provide less tangible but equally important benefits in the forms of recreational, like spiritual, intellectual, like stimulation. But despite widespread public awareness of the direct benefits that humans derive from ecosystems, the full magnitude of benefits like attributably to ecosystems is woefully underappreciated by the public in general. I would say the public failure is like basically to recognize these benefits increases the likelihood that natural resources will be managed and developed in a manner that leads to ecosystem degradation. We can say as an example that such source development in conjunction with increasing human population and land use intensification, for example, can stress ecosystems to point where their ability to provide aforementioned benefits is compromised. So concern that the human enterprise may jeopardize the viability of ecosystems is the motivation behind the natural resource management paradigm shift that is now basically focusing on long-term sustainability of ecosystems as the measure of responsible stewardship of natural resources. It's kind of an important also to mention that because the notion of ecological sustainability has a strong intuitive appeal, there are few who would criticize a natural resource management strategy that seeks to restore and maintain the composition, structure, and function of ecosystems so that future generations can derive the same ecosystem services that current generations enjoy. Despite widespread acceptance of the goals implied by ecological sustainability, there is little agreement and much contention surrounding how to implement ecological sustainability in a resource management context. Some have argued that sustainability is neither a realistic goal nor a useful concept, while others have argued that it is only strategy leading a viable long-term pattern of human resource use. There are also many factors that have been contributed to disparate opinions of the utility of ecological sustainability as the guide to resource management. And like I would say that basically what is the main point here is the resource management, how it's done, how it should be done in a way that like everybody benefits from it. Basically, certainly ecological sustainability has been defined as a general concept that is easily understood. Sustainability has been defined also the capacity of an area to provide present generation with the needed direct, indirect spiritual benefits, the human derived from ecosystems, like applied to natural ecosystems. I would say this definition implies that first, it's a management will not degrade those systems being utilized, and second, also the current generation of humans will leave an equitable share of resources for future generations. But however, a much more precise definition is required in the concept of ecological sustainability, is to move from simple statements of which the base of operational definitions of sustainability have not been articulated. In the absence of agreed upon set of basic constructs, definition to guide implementation will continue to be vague, elusive, and unsteady. Third is also the special and temporal ecological sustainability, for example. Consequently, the differences among sustainability management case studies. I can give you also the example that like differences in ecological attributes measured or differences in interpretation, like these are the two examples that best describes these studies, and has been used actually perhaps inappropriately, but as evidence for an in-field management paradigm. And finally, like although list of potential indicators of ecological sustainability are beginning to emerge, most lack clarity and consensus. For example, like we basically what we are doing is like in different areas according to the geographical or cultural background, these kind of things happen, and it's most likely that it's a natural thing, I would say also, but yeah, the most we have the most lack of clarity and consensus because of these terms. But like most importantly is that like we're making the first steps in this way, and we're also now like in the world in generally, I would say, I cannot like specify how it's in the country wise, but like general concept of this is that step by step the important measures are taken to have this like common understanding of this stuff to basically like step over this lackness that we are having according to the clarity and consensus.
Thank you, To. And my second question will be following. What does it mean for the citizenship education? What do you think?
Let's start with the education itself. Education has been shown to be a fundamental tool that can adequately contribute to behavioral changes in citizens, which can like eventually be translated into aspects of environmental citizenship. It's also good to mention here that there are several, like 3 types to be specific of the forms of education. One is like this well-known and well-developed formal education. The second one is the informal education, and then the biggest part, what for example European Union through Erasmus Plus is doing, its non-formal education. And nowadays non-formal education is becoming more and more popular by its development and also to the impact that they make. And basically, like we all have this kind of 3 forms of education when it comes to like this citizenship education. Like I can say that according to Hackle, there is an urgent need to provide young citizens with sources of hope in troubled times, and environmental citizenship can provide the hope that that urgent solutions needed against modern environmental challenges can be found. What basically non-formal education is doing, that it's not the type of the studies that like you have to be lectured about something, but young people basically they are introduced to the new ways of like how to raise their awareness, how to, for example, deliver the main messages, main concepts and ideas to them in a less complicated way, I would say. And there are many methods, tools and techniques which provide the effectiveness of this citizenship education in environmental context. And there is a really high hope that this certain type of education will do a lot of good in the future again and again. And environmental citizenship basically is relevant with science education also. Environmental education, education for sustainability, and citizenship education. Each type of education has something important to contribute to environmental citizenship through its specific approaches, dimensions, and practices. And the practices, to my mind, is it's my personal opinion that they contribute the most when we are talking about this. So environmental sustainability is also linked to citizenship. Many studies in science education underscore the key role of science education for promoting active and responsible citizenship. There are many aspects and many small details when we are talking about being a responsible citizenship, and environmental education is one of the parts to be more environmental. And also it's the part of this 8 key competencies that non-formal education is now promoting so much. And it's it is one of the pack of competencies that every young person has to have, and basically it really contributes to the active citizenship and responsible citizenship. The inclusion of socio-scientific controversies, for example, in the science curriculum signifies a departure from the traditional science teaching into more contemporary approaches, elaborating the discussion of ill structure, open-ended topics. I can also say that recently the socio-scientific inquiry-based learning framework proposed a model of concepts and practices of central to inquiry, which supports teachers with integrating citizenship in science classes, for example. The European Commission report about science education for responsible citizenship, if I'm not mistaken, identified the main issues involved in helping all citizens acquire the necessary knowledge of and necessary knowledge of and about science to participate actively, basically responsibly and successfully in and with society throughout their lives. Because it's not just the competence to have it to be or an environmental citizen or to be active and responsible citizen. It's to me, for example, it's a lifestyle that you have to have this kind of values, and basically what non-formal education also is doing is we are setting up the standards for values for this young people that becomes the lifestyle afterwards. It also provides insights on how science education, about this research that I have mentioned about European Commission, the science education for responsible citizenship. It's basically what it does, it provides insights on how science education can help Europe achieve its goals, but like it's the actually it's the best practice that you cannot say that it's only like designed and worked for Europe, for example, but it also like the best practice, this model of how to foster this kind of good practices and examples in the other parts of the world as well, for example, in Eastern Partnership countries. And it also empowers people with the skills and competencies needed to deliver sustainable and competitive solutions to these challenges. Environmental problems in many cases are such complex and controversial socio-scientific issues that students should be inducted in how to critically approach them, how critically look at them, and it also develops, I would say, critical thinking, which one is one of the competences as well. And in frames of, for example, EE, many scholars argue that the ultimate goal of environment education is to develop students' ability to act as informed and empowered citizens, and other scholars invoke environmental education as a safe way to promote environmental citizenship. But we cannot deny or agree of one of them. I think it's up to the audience that you are trying to deliver it to, and it also has a different impact on every different cultural or like country background. However, according to other scholars, because there are third-part scholars as well, there still remains a lively disagreement about the aims of environmental education, which may lead to conflicting goals and outcomes. I can say that Tidbal and Krasny, yes, Tidbal and Krasny stated that some models of environmental education may even have contradictory pedagogical approaches. Some such ambiguities in targeting and priorities can act as a barrier to the effective implementation of the education for environmental citizenship. And also, in addition, I can say that a lot of research efforts in the framework of education for environmental citizenship, they are like effectively done and effectively delivered to the target group, or for example, the beneficiaries that we are trying to reach. Also, it's I would say that it's very individualistic approach through which the ultimate goal is to achieve behavioralistic alternations in terms of the individual. So for the decades, a great deal of effort has been given to understand environmental behavior, and several models have been proposed in the literature, like many, for example, educational efforts have been undertaken to understand and improve the environmental behavior of citizens. But however, like such models have been elaborated in like greater framework of I don't know, like framework in many, like the social work, in youth work, and to set up the values also, and setting up the standards for it. Like environmental citizenship has been collective action as an instinct dimension, apart from the personal action in private and public sphere as well. This dimension of environmental citizenship is often not the focus of educational efforts in the context of environmental education. And many researchers have advised that we need an educational model that can promote the type of strong environmental citizenship and to move beyond the individualistic and behavioristic approach to more like deliberately integrate an environmental citizens engagement in civic participation and collective actions into environmental education practices. Also, there are like many organizations and many departments and many like public body basically that promotes three interconnected pillars of the sustainability, like environmental, social, and economical sustainability. And the concept of citizenship is just one of the 20 key themes of sustainable development, and environmental citizenship is therefore not the focus of many of the approaches. But in addition, I can also say that there is a recorded criticism regarding exploiting the social dimension and issues related to social justice and social political engagement of active citizens. Like, there are also several approaches that are trying to incorporate citizenship and are attempting to find common ground between global citizenship education and educational, education for sustainable development. And finally, there is many curricular around the world that has its own contribution, basically really has its own contribution, and is considered like important in understanding how citizens could become politically empowered and active, and how society is governed. Kerr points out the differences between passive and historical and active and critical citizenship education. It's a useful framework, for example, to represent the dimensions of critical CE is proposed by Johnson as well, and Morris, in which politics, social, self, and praxis represent the component elements of critical citizenship education. I could add to that mindset that like international assessment studies regarding citizenship education, such as ICCS, gave some cover in environmental issues. And environmental citizenship is not in the focus of this important studies. As can be seen from above argumentation, like education for environmental citizenship has never been put into the spotlight of the, for example, literature, and it has rarely been placed also at the heart of the educational efforts in context of environmental education, science education, citizenship education, and sustainability education. But therefore, there is a need for an education that will have environmental citizenship as its prime concern, and to set it up as an ultimate aim. And last but not least, education for environmental citizenship could be considered to act as like this type of education.
Thank you, Tove, for further information, and I will pass to the next question, and it will be following: how we improve our sustainability in our everyday life? What do you think?
Thank you, Natia. It's a really good question, actually. But yeah, I think in order to achieve a sustainable society, because like we have to create first sustainable society, and then in this sustainable society to work on different types of sustainability. A citizen must be supported in overcoming any important gaps or challenges, preparing people for environmental citizenship, and education for sustainability shows like coincidences in some dimensions and differences in others, because, as I have mentioned, it's behavioristical and it's individualistic. So like, yeah, there can be like coincidences and differences in some dimensions, like in both ways. However, within its definition, Environmental citizenship has a strong emphasis and impact on the environmental dimension of sustainability and on civic engagement in the private, social, and political sphere. Environmental citizens are able to, for example, exercise their environmental rights and duties, and I think it should not be started when we are like enough adult to like conscious this stuff, but like from the very basis of the kindergartens, and we have to be able to identify and have a capacity to like underline structural causes of environmental degradation and environmental problems, and the most important thing is to have the willingness and the competencies to address the critical and active engagements. This stuff they act individually and also collectively within democratic means, and consider inter and intergenerational justice, I would say. Education for environmental citizenship is relevant because it can strengthen the achievement of sustainability goals through a more active civic participation. And also education for like for environmental citizenship needs to like develop these points, like more skills and competencies that will enable students to reach these levels of environmental awareness with wider like spatial and temporal scopes, using specific educational approaches and methodologies that promote these qualities in individuals. So like as I have mentioned before, like I'm staying in this opinion like strongly that like these two dimensions have to be divided, and each has to concentrate more on their the goals and aims to see the relevant and reliable outcomes. And there is robust education for environmental citizenship to enhance governance skills that can contribute to the effective safeguarding on the environment as a holistic entity that encompasses like natural, social, and economic dimensions. Also, in view of the required development towards more sustainable societies, like citizens need to be supported and taught properly to overcome any important gaps or challenges in being part of a sustainable society. Environmental education mostly focuses on promoting environmental knowledge and citizenship, like ecological citizenship, and basically like we have to have the attitudes, for example, for like being eco-friendly, and also the values that I have been talking like last few minutes. It's both for achieving like higher order cognitive skills necessary to promote an ecological sound lifestyle. And the teaching, not only the teaching, but also like teaching and learning objectives in formal settings are building scientific knowledge and developing the students' relations with nature through active learning pedagogies such as field work and outdoor experiences that has to be like got out from the classes and from the buildings, and what causes what is related to the nature has to be done like in the field work and outside. It is usually considered as a school subject or a topic within biology, but non-formal environmental education such as awareness raising campaigns and knowledge sharing projects often aims at changing people's personal lifestyle. It can be like saving energy, recycling, upcycling, or like buying organic food. And like on the last podcast, I have mentioned that I have been the part of this ecological training that was run under Erasmus Plus, and like basically what we were spreading there was that. Yes, we can do stuff without like wasting resources, and like to use less waste. For example, we used on this training less material. We were separating the waste, and we were trying to be like more responsible citizens. And traditionally, environmental education built on the notion of fostering environmentally concerned and literate like citizens, and these aspirations could be seen as a form of environmental citizenship, which is right, as I think. However, environmental citizenship never was the heart of our education, which also I have mentioned, and still remains a lively disagreement about the aims of environmental education that may lead to conflicting goals and outcomes. But the important idea has been to build so-called pro-environmental behavior through cognitive and affective learning, and this is supported by several psychological models. And I can name like Heinz and colleagues, for example. They presented the model of responsible environmental knowledge and behavior. And in their model, the possession of the like right environmental attitudes and environmental knowledge is suggested to lead to raised intention and to act pro-environmentally. Like similarly, in this theory of planned behavior, I think Isaac Eisen argued that possessions of attitudes and beliefs towards a certain action will lead to a higher likelihood of performing an actual pro-environmental behavior. But also I can get you the example of Kolmus and Eichmann, like which they claim that the link between the right attitude and knowledge, the pro-environmental behavior is not that clear cut. In their model of pro-environmental behavior, affective and cognitive components, together with the personal and social factors, are suggested to lead to pro-environmental mostly behavior. As a consequence of idea of fostering pro-environmental behavior, environmental education has led to a focus of teaching of ecological knowledge and facilitating the development of ecocentric attitudes. And like education for sustainability is also often considered in many educational systems to be an integrative concept of education in the field of environment, where the ecological dimension of environmental education is more strongly supplemented with the social and economical dimensions. In formal teaching, for example, this often means that ecological science content is mixed with interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary collaborative work with the social and economical context. And this way of describing sustainable development by the three interconnected, like equal and mutually important dimensions of the environment, economy, and society is often referred to the three pillars of sustainability. This also was emphasized in the Rio +20 meeting. It's a United Nations conference on sustainable development, where a new integrated agenda beyond like 2015 was proposed to ensure the promotion of an economically like economically and socially and environmentally viable future for the planet, as explicated in the Sustainable Development Goals. Accordingly, the Sustainable Development Agenda should fully integrate the all three dimensions of sustainable development in a coherent, like holistic, comprehensive, and balanced manner. But this way, yes, basically this way of understanding and working with sustainability around the three dimensions has become become a global benchmark and a common ground for most like sustainability initiatives worldwide. The main idea is that sustaining the environment and ecosystems needs to be based on considerations of social and economical development. And yeah, education for citizenship is defined by ENEC, like in 2018, as the type of education that cultivates a coherent and adequate body of knowledge, as well as the necessary skills, values, and attitudes to, and also mainly competencies that an environmental citizen should be equipped with in order to be able to act and participate in society as an agent of change in the private and public sphere on a local, national, international, like and like basically global scale through individual and maybe collective actions as well, which are kind of effective. And education for environmental citizenship is important to empower citizens to exercise their environmental degradation and environmental problems, like develop the willingness and the competencies for critical and active engagement and civic participation to address those structural cases, acting like individually and collectively with democratic means, I mean, and taking into account the and generational like justice. From the above description, it is evident that there are some similarities between education for environmental citizenship and education for sustainability, and both aim at the same at the same type of action abilities and to bring about environmental and social sustainability. But there are some possible differences in the overall teaching and phases. There are, however, some differences between education for environmental and education for sustainability. And historically, the weakest dimension in education for sustainability has been social, where social justice issues have been inadequately addressed. The knowledge of how to democratically change society and the social justice effects of those changes on the local and global society have, at least at the beginning, not been sufficiently emphasized in education for sustainability, as its roots lie in environmental education with the partly like narrower focus on environmental protection and conservation of resources. These social political dimensions are emphasized in education for environmental citizenship, along with the aim of promoting people to act according to the public environmental good. And in that case, the education for environmental citizenship can be considered as a developed, integrated, and applied approach that is in accordance with education for sustainability's like broader context, by which the content and abilities to really make social change for a better world can be fulfilled. And in contrast with education for sustainability, where citizenship is only one of the two key themes, education for environmental citizenship is specifically focused on environmental citizenship and how this could be achieved. And like it has, it never was the heart education, like namely education for citizenship, and understood as a practice that deceive and consolidation of citizenships subjects. In the same point of view, according to Loureiro, 2011, I think, environmental education is constituent part of social and environmental movements, and the process of construction of planetary citizenship or eco-citizenship is considered as a new concept. Also, education for environmental citizenship explicitly emphasizes the practice of environmental rights and duties, and identification of like underlying structural causes of the environmental problems, and developing the willingness and competencies for critical and active engagement. But however, education for environmental citizenship builds upon and integrates the pre-existing approaches of environmental education and education for sustainability. And to solve sustainability issues, environmental citizens need to face the complexity and context depend characteristics. Sustainability is to some extent a vague normative concept, which implies that critical thinking and mutual negotiations and the discussion are required to identify a concrete situation, what sustainability means, and what options or decisions are sustainable. And education for environmental citizenship needs to reconnect contemporary human societies to all other spheres of the living planet, and reduce a great cognitive and emotional distance that currently separates humans from the environment, enabling people to value and respect our planetary life support system, rather than view it as a simple like resource to exploit. This means that like environmental citizenship should help learners understand the complexity of social ecological systems, and identify structural causes of environmental degradation. And like basically with this in mind, education for citizenship, environmental citizenship broadens the perspective from local to global aspect, and emphasizes the interrelations and independencies. Sustainability learning is a multi-level concept taking place at the individual level, as well as one of the level of social aggregates, groups, organizations, and society as a whole. And this corresponds with the emphasis of education for environmental citizenship on the political dimension, and collective actions aimed at sustainability-oriented change. And environmental citizens itself shall use their skills and competencies through the environment in local decision making and action towards community goals, consequently achieving changes in society. And I'm gonna slowly go to the end, that the education for this purpose should therefore provide knowledge, skills, and competencies for real-world problem-solving processes in context of policy-centric governance, reaching from the local to larger scale levels. And knowledge should design principles for effective regulations and problem-solving, as identified in research on collective action, and the knowledge of sustainability-oriented concepts such as resilience and co-management are therefore as important as gaining skills through personal experiences in such collective problem-solving processes. We can use an example here through case studies and project-based learnings, and this should be the main base of this kind of problem-solving processes and approaches. Teachers, mentors, and scientists need also to foster environmental citizenship and engage more effectively with other parts of society to transform it into a more sustainable society through education. Like civil society needs to be in open conversation with the state to encourage the policymakers to take appropriate decisions and move forward from calls to action. Education for environmental citizenship should provide citizens with the necessary competencies to achieve this, and political and communication skills are therefore crucial assets required by environmental citizens, as well as the environmental and sustainability oriented knowledge, attitudes, and values to motivate them to take on responsibility for actions.
Thank you, Theo, so much. Just our podcast gets closer to the end, and I would like to use the moment and express my gratitude for your work. And I have a big hope that target audience will use this information not only in their professional life, also in everyday life. Thank you so much. And
thank you for having me.